Okay. I'm supposed to be here to you talking about our strike at Leeds University. I think many of you know we didn't actually get to strike because we won a huge victory the very day before. Our first day of action was supposed to be Thursday, but on Wednesday we suspended our action at a massive union general meeting because in the morning we got the management to withdraw the immediate threat of compulsory redundancies. Alongside this, and perhaps equally important, we got an agreement about how the university can approach organisational change. Really, we've gone through a period where they haven't consulted with the union. It really looked to us like they weren't recognising us anymore. But now they've got to they've got a plan that involves promoting job security, avoiding redundancy, and staff have got to be engaged in any process of organisational change, and academic freedom is back on the agenda in all of these discussions. We won at Leeds because we had the biggest, most solid strike in our history planned, and the management knew this. We had nearly 100 pickets signed up, ready for the picket line on Thursday morning. We've won a lot, but they're still in talks, they still find details to agree, and we're all vigilant, and our members at least know they need to be vigilant because we know exactly what our management are like, and we know that they might backslide. So clearly we've won the first battle, but we're very well aware that it's a war. We've seen the disputes going on elsewhere. We know the cuts are going to keep coming. I just want to tell you what we did in a little bit of detail to get where we are at Leeds, because I hope some people can learn from it. We've learned a lot along the way. Our Vice-Chancellor, Michael Arthur, is head of the Russell Group. He announced £35 million worth of cuts back in November. That's before we knew the scale of the government cuts. He said he was going to get in there in advance. He was going to make preparations for the cuts, put Leeds ahead of the game. So he asked heads of departments to identify 10% cuts across the board. That at Leeds represents several hundred jobs, and they announced a very poor voluntary severance scheme. And for the first time, the Vice-Chancellor said to us that compulsory redundancies couldn't be ruled out. At the same time, 9 faculties were under review, with the biological sciences being the one right under the spotlight, where 20.3 academic posts were identified to go. Job descriptions had been drafted, similar to what we heard at King's, where people were having to apply for their own jobs, and it was very, very clear that people were already identified to be booted out. It was clear, really, that the university was taking advantage of the financial climate to restructure Leeds University, something they probably wanted to do for quite a while. So we knew it was serious, we knew we had to tackle it, and we started off with petitioning, we held campus rallies, we lobbied the university senate and the council meetings. All of that in the build-up to a series of very well-attended general meetings, culminating in the one where we took the decision to ballot for strike action. It's important to say that the meetings over this period have been the biggest we've ever known at Leeds. We've recruited 200 to 300 new members since the start of this campaign, and we're now either the biggest or the second biggest branch, and I'm sure one of the best organised in the country. And to you people in the room, I think it's important to know that's partly a result of how we've built the branch over the years. There are socialists in there are socialists in our leadership, there are activists, and we've campaigned in the union over a whole number of issues. Sometimes we've campaigned and thought, what was the point? However, with hindsight, we know, it's put us in a very good position right now. We fought against waiver clauses in fixed-term contracts years ago that gave us inferior work status. We campaigned in 2006 when they tried to downgrade 100 of us, when they brought in a new pay scale. So we really built a branch that was well placed to tackle these huge cuts. With the ballot, we set out, we called it a Get the Vote Out campaign in the style of Obama's campaign. We aimed to make contact with every single union member on campus, and we knew we couldn't do that with our normal elected committee, so we set up an action committee, a temporary committee where people could volunteer just for this dispute. We broke the campus down into different areas, and we split the reps up with action committee members delegated to go around and knock on doors in their allocated patch. The National UCU gave us their full support. They knew we were dedicated at Leeds, they knew we were out to win, and they wanted us to win, and they gave us their backing. So they sent a number of their staff down to help us for a fortnight on a rota. So in the end, we approached thousands of members, or tried to make contact with 1,000, and we actually spoke to 800. Where we couldn't reach them in their offices, we set up a phone tree. Now, this type of campaigning really transformed our union. It's actually turned the union into flesh and blood for our members, something that we haven't known before, not just a string of emails from the president, a real life person on your doorstep. And then we got the excellent ballot result, a 66% turnout, which apparently is the best the UCU or the AUT has ever had in its history. 64% voted yes to strike action, and 78% voted for actions short of a strike. We produced excellent campaign materials. We did an alternative vision. We did a letter for students and their parents. People will have heard of the petition to the visitor. I won't go into what that means, but it looks at the checks and balances in the university. We've got a tribunal ongoing. One member invested his energies into running a brilliant blog which documented all the different moves in the campaign, and we knew management were watching that closely because we received complaints to them from stuff that was going on there. So we looked very organised right from the start. We had demonstrations, we set up Facebook sites, petitions, and we got the collection for a hardship fund going. And I'm absolutely sure that with there's Leeds students in the room that when the management saw that students were actively supporting their lecturers in defence of our jobs and their education, that also had a powerful impact on the management at Leeds. Then we really followed the same structure when we campaigned for the 3-day strikes that were due to take place last week and this week. Basically, it's aiming for the maximum participation of members. And for those that are embarking on their disputes now, it wasn't easy sailing all the way. There's been loads of debate, but basically we set out to present a united campaign with the aim of winning, and that's the way we overcame any divisions. And I'm glad to be speaking alongside Alison Lord here, because a number of us who've been key to building at Leeds took massive inspiration from what they did at Tower Hamlets. We saw that they could fight compulsory redundancies, and we thought, we've got a duty and a need to do the same. Now we're seeing a series of ballots, Kings here, Sussex, Westminster, I think UCL. We're going to see more and more and more in the pipeline as the wave of job cuts are announced. And for us at Leeds, it's clear that we do need a national campaign, and we're going to put pressure on the union to lead some sort of national mobilisation. I'm pleased for the demonstration in London, but I do think we need a coordinated series of strikes over the job cuts. People have talked throughout the day, rehearsed the arguments of, against cutting education in a recession. It's blatantly obvious. Talked about the money for bailing out the bankers. We won at Leeds because of the huge threat of strike action. However, there's an election coming up, and it's also been clear to us that there's been a fear of the sort of discussions that UCU's been opening up at Leeds. So right now we've got leverage. They don't want a discussion, the sort of discussions we've had about the nature of education. They don't want a series of strikes going on. I'm absolutely sure Mandelson has talked to Michael Arthur at Leeds about averting our strike. So I think we are actually being listened to by our members and by people in other positions of power. So for those who are taking strike action, right now is the time. I think before the election they don't want a series of big strikes over education. So I think push ahead with those ballots, and our members too are feeling incredibly powerful because we are seeing this series of victories. So I'd just like to offer my solidarity to the rest of you who'll be leading the fight. And thanks ever so much for the support we got at Leeds.